The chandelier exploded above me, a cascade of crystal shards raining down like a scream frozen in time. I ducked, shielding my daughter Lily as the glittering fragments bit into the polished oak floor of Clara's sprawling California mansion. The air was thick with the scent of eucalyptus cleaner and something sharper. Gas, faint but unmistakable, curling into my lungs. My heart slammed against my ribs, not just from the crash, but from the way the room went silent, every head turning toward me like I'd pulled the pin on a grenade. I wasn't imagining it. The weight of their stares pressed harder than the heat of the late afternoon sun streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Sophie's 9th birthday party was supposed to be a pastel dream of fairy lights and laughter, but now, standing in the wreckage of glass, I felt like I'd stumbled into a trap. "Mommy, are you okay?" Lily's small voice trembled as she clutched my hand, her fingers sticky from the cotton candy she'd been holding. Her wide brown eyes darted from the shattered chandelier to the crowd of Clara's perfectly manicured friends. Their wine glasses paused mid-sip. I forced a smile, brushing a stray curl from her forehead. "I'm fine, sweet pea," I lied, my voice steadier than my pulse. But I wasn't fine, not when I caught Clara's gaze from across the room. Her lips curved in that practiced smile that never touched her eyes. She stood by the dessert bar, a vision in white linen, her glossy red nails tapping rhythmically against a champagne flute. She didn't move to help, didn't gasp like the others. She just watched, like a director assessing a scene she'd staged herself. I straightened, pulling Lily closer, her handmade necklace of pearls and pressed roses swinging against her sundress. She'd spent hours stringing it together for her cousin Sophie, her small hands trembling with pride as she wrapped it in tissue paper last night. "Do you think Sophie will like it?" she'd asked, her voice so soft it broke my heart. I'd told her it was perfect, but now, standing in Clara's pristine foyer, I wasn't so sure. This wasn't a place for handmade gifts or small, earnest gestures. Clara's world was curated, every detail polished to a sterile shine. Marble counters, velvet cushions, a dessert bar with macarons arranged like modern art. My sister-in-law had a way of making you feel like your best efforts were never quite enough. "Let's get some air," I whispered to Lily, guiding her toward the backyard. The kids were out there, chasing each other through a high-tech scavenger hunt with glowing wristbands and iPads, their laughter sharp and exclusive. Lily hesitated at the French doors, her shoulders hunching as she clutched the gift tighter. None of the other children looked her way, their eyes locked on their screens, their voices a cacophony of privilege. I knelt beside her, brushing a speck of dust from her dress. "It's okay, sweetheart," I said, but the words felt hollow. She was an outsider here, just like me. I hated that she felt it too, her 6-year-old heart already learning the sting of being overlooked. Clara's voice cut through the noise like a knife. "Oh, honey, you made it," she said, gliding toward us, her heels clicking on the hardwood like a metronome. Her tone carried that faint surprise, as if my presence was an afterthought. "You didn't have to come all this way. A courier would have done for the gift." "Huh?" Her eyes flicked to the tissue-wrapped package in Lily's hands, then back to me, sharp and assessing. I forced warmth into my voice. "We wouldn't miss Sophie's birthday," I said, but the words tasted like ash. Clara's smile tightened, and she turned away, her attention already drifting to a cluster of her friends by the pool. I stood there, rooted, the familiar flush of inadequacy crawling up my neck. I used to crave her approval, back when I thought I could win it. Now I just wanted to survive her. Lily tugged at my sleeve, her voice barely a whisper. "Mommy, I made you something." From her little canvas bag she pulled a silver hairpin, delicate and shaped like a crescent moon, its beads catching the light like tiny stars. "Wear it when you're scared," she said, her eyes serious. My throat tightened, and I clipped it into my hair, feeling its weight like a promise. But when I caught Clara's glance from across the yard, her lips curling just slightly, I unclipped it and tucked it into my pocket. The reflex shamed me, making myself smaller, dimmer, to avoid her judgment. I wasn't that person anymore, or at least, I didn't want to be. The party churned on, a blur of squeals and clinking glasses, the kind of perfect chaos Clara orchestrated effortlessly. I stood by the buffet, sipping the sparkling water that tasted like nothing, when my phone buzzed in my pocket. Ethan's name flashed on the screen, and I stepped into a quiet corner of the patio to answer. "Hey," I said softly, expecting his usual check-in, but his voice was wrong. Low, jagged, like he'd been running. "Rain, get Lily out of that house. Now." My stomach dropped. "What?" "Ethan, we just got here. Don't argue. Don't think. Just grab her and run." His words cracked like glass, sharp and final. "I'll explain later, but you need to move." My hands went cold, the phone slipping slightly in my grip. I scanned the yard, spotting Lily sitting alone on the patio steps, tracing patterns in the dust with her finger. "Ethan, you're scaring me," I whispered, but he cut me off. "I'm dead serious, Rain. Get her out." The line went dead. My breath hitched, and I crossed the yard in seconds, my sandals slipping on the polished stone. "Lily, we're going home," I said, scooping her up. She didn't protest, her small body soft against mine, but her eyes were wide, questioning. "Did I do something wrong?" she asked as I strapped her into her car seat. "No, sweetheart," I said, my voice breaking as I slid into the driver's seat. "Daddy just needs us home." I backed out too fast, the tires screeching against the curb, my hands trembling on the wheel. Sophie's voice called after us, "Lily, where are you going?" But I didn't stop. The sun was dipping low, casting long shadows across the palm-lined street, and the silence in the car was suffocating. My phone buzzed again. 5 missed calls from Ethan, 1 voice. I pulled over, my fingers shaking as I played it. His voice filled the car, raw and unsteady, nothing like the calm man I knew. "Rain, don't panic, but that house isn't safe. Diane, Clara's old housekeeper, called me. She saw something in the attic. Cameras, Rain, hidden in the guest rooms. And worse, she said Clara's been asking about you, about Lily, your schedules, your bank accounts. I don't know what she's planning, but you can't stay there." I froze, my knuckles white on the steering wheel. Lily hummed softly in the back, clutching her bag, oblivious. The attic, cameras. The words didn't fit, like puzzle pieces from the wrong box. I replayed the message, his voice tighter this time, each word a nail in my chest. "Diane found them years ago, behind mirrors, in light fixtures. She didn't say anything then because Clara fired her, but she knows what she saw, and she said Clara's obsessed with you two. Get out, Rain. Don't go back." The phone clicked off, and the silence roared. I stared out the windshield, the world blurring. A mailbox, a jogger, a dog barking in the distance. Normal things, safe things. But Clara's house wasn't safe. I remembered the last time we stayed there, how she'd snapped when Lily tried to go upstairs to the study. "It's off limits," she'd said, her voice like ice. I'd thought she was just particular, but now it felt like something else, something calculated. I drove home, the coastal highway stretching endlessly before me, the ocean glinting like a taunt. Lily's soft humming kept me grounded, but my mind was spiraling. Clara's smile, her questions about my job, Lily's school, the way she'd linger near us at family dinners, her red nails flashing like warning signs. I'd brushed it off as her being nosy, but now it felt like a web, and I was caught in it. Our house came into view, a modest craftsman with peeling blue paint, the porch light already on. Ethan's truck was parked crooked, like he'd skidded to a stop. I carried Lily inside, her sleepy weight anchoring me to something real. The house smelled of cedar and coffee, a stark contrast to Clara's sterile mansion. I set Lily down, watching her pad to the couch with her blanket, her small frame curling up like she could make herself invisible. Ethan emerged from the hallway, his face pale, hands shoved deep in his pockets. "I didn't want to scare her," he said quietly, glancing at Lily. "You didn't just scare her," I snapped, keeping my voice low. "You scared me." He looked down, guilt etching lines into his face. I didn't have time to explain. Diane called me out of the blue. "You remember her? Clara's housekeeper from when Sophie was a baby?" I nodded, the memory vague but sharp. "Diane, the one Clara fired for getting too close?" Ethan leaned against the counter, his voice low. "She was cleaning the guest rooms one day, dusting a bookshelf, and found a tiny camera lens hidden behind a vase, then another in the light fixture. She said there were more, Rain. In every guest room, Clara was recording people who stayed there, including you and Lily." My breath caught, the room tilting slightly. "Recording us," I whispered, gripping the edge of the kitchen island. "Why?" "She didn't know at first," Ethan said, rubbing his forehead. "But Diane said Clara asked her weird questions about our finances, your work hours, where Lily goes to school. It wasn't casual. It was obsessive." The words landed like blows. I thought of the guest room Clara always insisted we use, the one with the heavy curtains and the decorative vase that never moved. I remembered Lily, barely 4, pointing at the lamp and saying, "It's blinking, Mommy." I'd laughed it off, told her it was just the light. But now, the memory twisted into something sinister. "So she's been watching us," I said, my voice barely audible. Ethan didn't answer. He didn't need to. I moved to the living room, sinking onto the couch beside Lily. She was half asleep, her blanket pulled tight. "Did I do something bad?" she mumbled, her eyes fluttering open. "No, baby," I said, kissing her forehead. "You were perfect." But my eyes drifted to the window, the darkening street beyond, and for the first time, I felt like the shadows were watching back. The next morning, I woke to the soft beep of the baby monitor I'd forgotten in my purse. It was still on, its tiny red light blinking like an accusation. I'd left it at Clara's during the chaos, and now it felt like a spy in my own home. I turned it off, my hands unsteady, and sat at the kitchen table, a cold coffee mug in front of me. Ethan walked in, hair damp from the shower, holding a plate of toast. "You okay?" he asked, setting it down. I nodded, but the lie was heavy. The voicemail played in my head on a loop. That house isn't safe. I opened my laptop, typing furiously. Home surveillance laws, California hidden cameras, guest room privacy. The results were a tangle of legalese, but the gist was clear. Homeowners could install cameras in non-private areas, but bedrooms were murky. Clara hadn't broken laws. She'd broken trust. I whispered, "She didn't need to break the law to ruin us." Ethan sat across from me, silent but watching. I picked up Lily's drawing from the table, a mirror with a single green dot in the center, drawn in crayon. "She saw this," I said, my voice shaking. "Yesterday, at the party, she told me there was a blinking light in the bathroom mirror. I thought she was imagining it." Ethan's jaw tightened. "Clara made her redo that scavenger hunt game, didn't she? Said the first try wasn't clear enough." I nodded, the pieces clicking together. She wasn't fixing the game, she was adjusting the camera. My stomach churned. The mirror in the dining room had a clear view of the guest room hallway, the same hallway Lily had wandered down before Clara snapped at her to stay downstairs. Then Lily's voice came from the hall, small and hesitant. "Mommy, Aunt Clara said something weird." I turned, crouching to meet her eyes. What did she say, sweetheart? She said, "You're sick," Lily whispered, twisting the hem of her pajama shirt. "That I might catch it if I stay too close. She told me in the car when you were talking to Mrs. Evans. She said not to tell you, or it'd make you sicker." The words hit like a slap. I stood too fast, grabbing the counter to steady myself. 3 years ago, when postpartum depression had me in its grip, Clara had come over with herbal tea and that same fake smile. "If people knew how fragile you are," she'd said, "they'd worry about Lily." It wasn't concern, it was a threat. And now she was planting that poison in my daughter's head. I walked to the bathroom, closed the door, and sank to the floor. My eyes landed on a bar of cedar soap in the corner, a gift from my father on the day Lily was born. "For when the world feels too heavy," he'd written. I held it now, but the scent wasn't comforting. It was a reminder of everything I'd lost to Clara's games. A knock pulled me back. "Rain?" Ethan's voice was soft but urgent. "There's something else." I opened the door, meeting his eyes. "What?" "Last summer, when you were at that art retreat in Portland, Clara stopped by Lily's preschool. Said she was just dropping off snacks. The teachers didn't think twice. She's family, but now..." His voice trailed off, the weight settling between us. "She's testing her reach," I said, the realization cold and sharp. "She doesn't just want to hurt me. She wants Lily." Ethan didn't argue. He just looked away, and in that moment something inside me shifted. I'd spent years proving I was stable, a good mother, but Clara had already decided I wasn't. She was planting seeds, waiting for them to grow. I grabbed my phone, my hand steady now, and texted my friend Laura, who worked in child welfare compliance. "Is it legal to install cameras in a home during a kids' event without telling anyone?" Her reply was quick. "Gray area. Consent and location matter. You okay?" I didn't respond. Instead, I opened my laptop and typed "Family Law Mediation, California." The cursor blinked, but my resolve didn't. Clara had been playing this game for years, but I was done being her pawn. That night, I couldn't sleep. The baby monitor's red light haunted me, even turned off. I slipped out of bed and padded to the attic, where my mother's oak chest sat under a layer of dust. I hadn't touched it since her funeral, when Clara had claimed it held nothing but sentimental junk. My fingers shook as I lifted the lid, the scent of cedar and old paper hitting me like a memory. Inside, I found a leather journal, its pages filled with my mother's careful handwriting. "I'm worried about Clara," one entry read. "She watches Rain with a coldness I can't explain. She blamed Rain for breaking that vase at school, but I saw Clara do it. Rain cries when she's hurt. Clara never does." I sat back, the journal heavy in my hands. I was 10 when that vase broke. Clara had pointed at me, her voice calm, convincing. Everyone believed her, even Mom. That day had shaped me, made me doubt myself, made me small. And now Clara was doing it again, but with Lily. I clutched the journal, my body shaking, not with fear, but with a fire I hadn't felt in years. Clara had built a narrative around me, but I wasn't her story anymore. I slipped back to bed, tucking the journal under my pillow. In the morning, I'd call Laura again. I'd find a lawyer. I'd protect Lily no matter what it cost, because some houses hide their dangers behind perfect facades, and some sisters smile while they sharpen their knives. But I wasn't afraid anymore. I was ready. The morning light sliced through the blinds, casting sharp lines across the kitchen table where I sat, the leather journal open in front of me. My mother's words stared back, each looped letter a quiet accusation. "Clara watches Rain with a coldness I can't explain." I traced the sentence with my finger, the paper worn soft at the edges, as if she'd lingered over it too. The house was still. Lily's soft snores drifting from her room, but the silence felt like a held breath, waiting to break. Ethan was already up, pacing the living room, his phone pressed to his ear. He was talking to Diane, the ex-housekeeper, his voice low but urgent, piecing together fragments of Clara's web. I didn't move, didn't speak. My mind was a storm, replaying the chandelier's crash, the faint whiff of gas, the shadow in Clara's upstairs window. And now this journal, proof that Clara's manipulation wasn't new. It was a lifelong game, and I'd been her favorite pawn. I closed the journal, my hands steady despite the fire in my chest. Last night I'd written a note on its final page. If anything happens to me, give this to Lily when she's 18. It felt dramatic, like something from a movie, but the slashed tire on my car yesterday wasn't fiction. Neither was the man I'd seen lingering in the parked sedan across the street as we pulled into our driveway. His face was half hidden by a baseball cap, but his eyes had locked on our house too long to be casual. I'd told myself it was nothing, a neighbor, a delivery guy. But now, with my mother's journal in my hands, nothing felt like a lie I couldn't afford. Ethan hung up and leaned against the doorway, his jaw tight. "Diane's scared," he said, running a hand through his hair. "She says Clara's been calling her, asking if she's talked to anyone. She thinks Clara knows she reached out." My stomach twisted. "Knows how?" I asked, my voice sharper than I meant. "Did Diane tell her?" "Word," Ethan said quickly. "But Clara's not stupid. Diane quit right after she found those cameras. Clara probably put it together when Diane stopped answering her calls." He paused, his eyes searching mine. "There's more. Diane said Clara's been digging into our finances, bank statements, your freelance contracts. She even asked about Lily's school records, like she was building a case." "A case for what?" I whispered, though I already knew. Clara wasn't just watching us. She was collecting ammunition, waiting for the right moment to fire. I thought of Lily's small voice yesterday, her words about Clara calling me sick. It wasn't just a cruel jab. It was a seed planted to make Lily doubt me, to make others question my fitness as a mother. I stood, pacing to the window, the street outside deceptively calm, palm trees swaying, a jogger passing by, the world pretending to be safe. But it wasn't, not anymore. I grabbed my phone and texted Laura again. "Need your help. Can we meet today? It's about Clara." Her reply was almost instant. "Coffee shop on Ocean Ave, 10 a.m. Bring everything you've got." I exhaled, a small relief in the chaos. Laura worked in child welfare compliance. She'd know if Clara's cameras were illegal or at least unethical enough to matter. But as I set the phone down, a creak from the porch made me freeze. It wasn't loud, just a soft shift of wood, but it didn't belong. I glanced at Ethan, who'd heard it too. He moved to the door, peering through the peephole, his body tense. "Nobody," he said, but his voice wasn't convinced. I slipped the journal into a drawer, my pulse racing, the slashed tire, the man in the car, now this. Clara's reach felt closer than ever. By 9:30, I was in the car. Lily buckled in the back, her crayon box rattling as we drove to the coffee shop. I'd tucked her drawing "The Mirror with the Blinking Green Light" into my bag along with the journal. Lily was quiet, clutching her stuffed bunny, her eyes fixed on the window. "Mommy?" she said suddenly. "Why does Aunt Clara always watch me funny?" My hands tightened on the wheel, the question slicing through me. "Funny how, sweet pea?" I asked, keeping my tone light. "Like she's waiting for me to do something wrong," she said, her voice small but clear. "She said I shouldn't tell you things, but I don't like that." My throat closed up. "You can always tell me, Lily. Always." I glanced at her in the rearview mirror, her face serious, too serious for a 6-year-old. Clara's whispers were already sinking into her, and the thought made my blood burn. I pulled into the coffee shop parking lot, a trendy spot with reclaimed wood tables and overpriced lattes, the kind of place Clara would love. Laura was already there, her auburn hair pulled into a messy bun, her laptop open. She waved me over, her smile fading as she saw my face. "Rain, you look like you haven't slept," she said, pushing a coffee toward me. I slid into the booth, Lily coloring quietly beside me. "I haven't," I admitted, pulling out the journal and Lily's drawing. I told her everything. The chandelier, the gas, Ethan's call, Diane's warning, the cameras, Clara's questions about our lives. Laura's eyes narrowed as I spoke, her pen tapping the table. When I showed her the drawing, she leaned in, her brow furrowing. "A green light in a mirror," she said. "That's specific. Kids don't make that up." "It's not just that," I said, lowering my voice. "Lily said Clara told her I'm sick, that she might catch it. She's trying to scare her, Laura, to turn her against me." Laura's face hardened. "That's psychological manipulation, Rain. If she's saying that to a child, it's a red flag for child welfare." She scribbled a note. "The cameras are trickier. In California, homeowners can install them in non-private areas without consent, but guest bedrooms? That's a gray area. If you can prove she recorded you without permission, it's a breach of trust, maybe even invasion of privacy, but we need evidence." "Like what?" I asked, my voice tight. "The cameras are in her house." Laura leaned back, thinking. "Start with Diane's testimony. Get her to go on record. And check that guest room if you ever go back. Look for lenses, wires, anything. But be careful. Clara's clearly got resources if she's pulling this off." I nodded, but the idea of going back to Clara's made my skin crawl. As we spoke, my phone buzzed. A text from Clara. "Brunch Sunday at the cliffside. Family only. Let's keep it peaceful. Some people have been emotionally volatile lately." The words were a blade, sharp and deliberate. She wasn't just inviting me, she was setting a stage, painting me as unstable before I could speak. I showed Laura the text and she snorted, "Classic. She's framing the narrative. Don't let her." I drove home, my mind racing. Clara's text wasn't just a jab, it was a challenge. She wanted me to show up, to play her game, but I was done following her rules. As I pulled into our driveway, I noticed the sedan again, parked 2 houses down. The same baseball cap, the same shadowed figure. My heart skipped and I locked the car doors, watching him in the rearview mirror. He didn't move, but I felt his eyes on us. "Stay here, Lily," I said, my voice calm but firm. I stepped out, phone in hand, ready to snap a photo, but the car peeled away, tires screeching. My hands shook as I dialed Ethan. "Someone's watching the house," I said when he picked up. "Same guy as yesterday?" Ethan was home in 10 minutes, his truck skidding into the driveway. "I'm calling the police," he said, but I stopped him. "For what? A guy in a car? We need more." He looked at me, his eyes heavy with worry. "Rain, this is getting dangerous. First the tire, now this. What's next?" I didn't answer because I didn't know. Instead, I went to Lily's room, where she was coloring a new picture. A house with no windows, a single red figure standing outside. "That's Aunt Clara," she said, pointing to the figure. "She's always there, even when I don't see her." My stomach dropped. Her words weren't just a child's imagination. They were a warning, one I'd ignored for too long. That night, I couldn't shake the image of the red figure. I sat at the kitchen table, the journal open again, reading another entry. Clara says Rain stole money from the school fundraiser. I don't believe her, but she's so convincing. Rain's too emotional, she says. I want to trust my daughter, but Clara's so calm. I slammed the journal shut, my breath ragged. I was 12 when that fundraiser happened. Clara had blamed me, and the school had suspended me. My mother had looked at me with doubt, not love, and I'd carried that shame for years. Now I saw it for what it was, Clara's first move in a decades-long game to make me the problem. I stood, my resolve hardening. I wasn't that girl anymore. I grabbed a notepad and wrote a single line. Clara's been lying since we were kids. I'm done being her story. I tucked it into the journal and hid it behind a box of old sweaters in my closet. If anything happened to me, Lily would know the truth. But I wasn't planning on disappearing. I called Laura again. I need a lawyer, I said. Someone who handles family law and defamation. Clara's not just coming for me, she's coming for Lily. Laura gave me a name, Sarah Klein, a family law attorney with a reputation for taking on tough cases. I called her that night, explaining everything, the cameras, the journal, Clara's whispers to Lily. Sarah listened, her voice calm but sharp. You've got a case, Rain. Emotional manipulation of a child is serious, and if we can prove the cameras, it's invasion of privacy. Start documenting everything, texts, voicemails, Lily's drawings. And don't go to that brunch alone, bring a witness. I hung up, my heart pounding but steady. The brunch was tomorrow, and I knew it wasn't just a meal. It was Clara's next move. I texted Aunt Margaret, my mother's sister, who'd always been skeptical of Clara. Can you come to brunch tomorrow? I need you. Her reply was instant. I'm there. Clara's not fooling me anymore. The cliffside was all glass and ocean views, the kind of place where influencers snapped photos of their avocado toast. I walked in, Lily's drawing and the journal in my bag, Aunt Margaret at my side. The family was already seated, Uncle Tom sipping coffee, Cousin Lisa scrolling her phone, and Clara, radiant in a navy blazer, her red nails gleaming like a warning. She smiled as I approached, but it was a predator's smile, all teeth and no warmth. Rain, she said, her voice dripping with surprise. I wasn't sure you'd come. I wouldn't miss it, I said, matching her tone. I took the wobbly chair at the end of the table, the one they'd left for me, and sat slowly, folding my napkin with care. Aunt Margaret sat beside me, her presence a quiet anchor. The conversation started light, whether Sophie's new dance class, but Clara steered it like a script. Mental health is so important, she said, her eyes flicking to me. Some people don't realize they're struggling until it affects their kids. The table went quiet. Uncle Tom coughed. Lisa looked up from her phone. I gripped my fork, my knuckles white, but kept my voice steady. Would you like me to respond now, Clara, or after the mimosas? The air froze. A waitress paused, unsure whether to approach. Clara tilted her head, her smile tightening. Excuse me. I stood, pulling the journal from my bag. This is Mom's handwriting, I said, opening to a bookmarked page. She wrote, Clara watches Rain with a coldness I can't explain. She blamed Rain for things she didn't do. Like the school fundraiser when I was 12. You lied, Clara, and you're lying now. A gasp rippled through the table. Aunt Margaret leaned forward, her eyes locked on Clara. Uncle Tom raised an eyebrow, his coffee forgotten. Clara laughed, short and brittle. You're digging up a dead woman's diary to attack me? That's your parenting strategy? She reached into her bag, pulling out her phone. Let's talk about your parenting, Rain. She tapped play, and my voice filled the room, cracking, desperate from 2020. I can't do this, Clara. I need to go. I don't want Lily to see me like this. It was the night after my seizure, when I'd been hospitalized, voiceless for days. The recording painted me as unhinged, exactly as she intended. The table stared, their eyes heavy with judgment. My face burned, but I stepped forward, my voice even. That was me begging for help after a medical crisis. I'm not ashamed of being human. But you, Clara, you've been using my pain to control me. That's what should shame you. Clara opened her mouth, but no words came. I placed a sealed envelope on the table. These are guardianship forms. My attorney will be in touch. I turned and walked out, Aunt Margaret following, the door's chime echoing behind us. In the car, my hands were steady, my heart loud but sure. Lily was at home with Ethan, safe for now, but I knew Clara wouldn't stop. That evening, I tucked Lily into bed, her bunny clutched tight. She held up a new drawing, 3 figures, me, her, and a red scribbled shape erased with jagged strokes. "That's Aunt Clara," she said. "She says I'm wrong, but I'm not. I remember the hallway, her red nails, the loud sound." My stomach dropped. Red nails, Clara's signature polish flashing like a warning in every memory. I kissed Lily's forehead. "You're not wrong, sweetheart. You remember just fine." I called Sarah Klein, my voice steady. "I need to file for exclusive custody, and I need Dr. Harper to testify." Sarah didn't hesitate. "You've got a strong case, Rain. Document everything and we'll move fast." At 8:47 p.m., a sharp knock startled me. Through the peephole, I saw a man in a navy jacket holding a flat envelope. "Delivery for Rain Carter," he said. I signed, my hands cold, and opened it on the couch. A cease and desist letter from Clara's lawyer accusing me of defamation and weaponizing a minor. I laughed, bitter and low. Clara was scared, and scared people made mistakes. A notification pinged. "Aunt Margaret, I saw Lily's drawing. I believe you. What do you need?" I typed back. Family trust records, anything on Clara's donations, the accounts Mom never listed. Her reply was a folder. Clara's donations, untraceable accounts. I opened it, my pulse racing. Pages of financial discrepancies, funds funneled to shell accounts. The game had changed. The next morning, I walked into Sarah's office, the flash drive and Lily's drawing in my pocket. Clara was there, polished and poised, her blazer too expensive for her charity salary. The mediator, Ms. Lang, outlined the rules, but Clara ignored them, launching into her attack. "Rain's unstable," she said, not looking at me. "She screams, isolates Lily, rewrites reality." I didn't flinch. When Ms. Lang asked for my response, I slid the flash drive across the table. "This is the Department of Education's audit on Clara's foundation. Page 17 shows misreported donations, untraceable accounts." Clara froze, her hands mid-gesture. I placed Lily's drawing beside it. "This is my daughter's truth. She drew Clara as the one who tells her she's wrong, and she remembers the red nails." Aunt Margaret spoke, her voice steady. "Lily remembers everything. Stop pretending she doesn't." Clara's mask cracked. She played another recording. My voice frantic from the night I hid in the pantry, terrified after Clara chased me with a broken perfume bottle. "She threatened to disappear with Lily," Clara said, her eyes gleaming. Aunt Margaret stood, placing an affidavit on the table. I was there. Rain was hiding because Clara scared her. That wasn't instability, it was fear. The room went silent. Ms. Lang's eyes narrowed, and Clara's face twisted just for a second, revealing the truth beneath her polish. "I'm filing for full custody," I said, my voice clear, "and for defamation and child endangerment. If the courts don't listen, the media will." Clara stood, her heels clicking like gunfire as she stormed out, tossing over her shoulder, "You're just a bitter little girl, Rain." But she was wrong. I wasn't chasing her anymore. I was standing still, breathing truth. That night, I took Lily to the park by the ocean. She ran, laughed, climbed, free, in a way I hadn't seen in months. Aunt Margaret sat beside me, her coffee mug cracked but warm in her hands. "I thought surviving meant staying quiet," I said, "but it's standing up even when your voice shakes." She nodded, patting my knee. That's why Lily's safe now. My phone buzzed. An email from a women's legal advocacy group offering me a job helping mothers navigate the system. I replied yes. As I tucked Lily into bed, she whispered, "Thank you, Mommy." I stood in her doorway, watching her sleep, and thought of Clara's house. No mirrors, no truth. But I was done living in her shadows. Some daughters become mirrors, reflecting what others refuse to see. And I was ready to shine.